Coming up, Debbie and I are ready for our Friday roundup. We're going to cover a bunch of stuff. The Biden judge stopping the deportation of Mr. Muhammad and his family. The showdown between Elon Musk and Trump over the big, beautiful bill. The criminal history of Letitia James's family. Wait till you hear about that. Why rent control in New York would be a disaster. And China's plan for harming everyone, including apparently themselves. Hey, if you're watching on Rumble or YouTube or X, or listening on Apple or Spotify, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe, the follow, the notifications button. I'd appreciate it. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
It's that time of the week again, Friday. We are ready, Debbie and I, for our roundup. And boy, we have a lot of stuff to cover. I thought we could begin with something that just happened, important decision from the Supreme Court. And the interesting thing about this decision, it's 9-0. So it doesn't happen too often.
Wow, 9-0.
By itself, it's interesting. Now, of course, you get 9-0 decisions, but sometimes they're about such trivialities that they don't tell you anything about the court. This is not a triviality. For about 40 years, we've had anti-discrimination law, where by and large, if you're a minority and you sue, you have a very low standard of proof. In fact, if there is an imbalance of workers in a certain part of the workforce, they assume that you're being discriminated against. And the company has to explain why they're not discriminating.
The quota.
Yeah, a kind of a built-in quota system, right? However, if you're a white person and you sue, none of this applies.
Because you're not a minority.
Because you're not a minority. So you're presumed to be a member of the discriminator class. And therefore, it's not
the
you can...
oppressor.
That's right. It's not that you can never win, but it's really hard to win.
Mm-hmm.
So what the Supreme Court did is they took this phrase that we've been hearing now for many years, reverse discrimination, and they basically go, there's no such thing. There's only discrimination. Whether you're white, whether you're not white, whether you're straight, whether you're gay, because apparently you had this woman who was passed over for jobs and promotions because she wasn't gay. They wanted to give it to a gay person, right?
Uh-huh.
So what the court said is, enough of all this, you're a member of the oppressor group or the victim group. Yes, discrimination is restricted under the Civil Rights Act, but if you're white, you have exactly the same level of protection as if you are non-white. If you're straight, you have the same protection as if you're gay. So, in other words, there's no kind of double standard.
Nobody gets an advantage.
Nobody gets
basically.
an advantage. So, very good thing. And I
Very.
think it's pretty striking that not only Elena Kagan and Sotomayor, but Ketanji Jackson
Yeah.
also
That's a
we're
surprise.
making some progress. And I think it cuts a little bit against this idea that the court is so divided. I mean, the country is divided, but the court in some ways perhaps less divided than the country.
Yeah. I think they are actually less divided than the country. I don't think they are as, I don't think they're as polarizing towards each other as the country.
Well, for one, we know that they do get along.
They do.
And the precedent was set years back when Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg...
They were like best friends.
They would go to the opera. And
No, I mean, they actually said they were best friends.
Yeah.
They claimed to be best friends, which I thought was pretty amazing.
Pretty amazing and pretty interesting. On another note, the Trump administration, the Department of Education, has apparently notified the Middle States Commission on Higher Education. This is the accrediting agency. So colleges, in order to operate, need accreditation. Otherwise, they're unaccredited, and your degree has less value. The left set up this whole system, and the reason they set it up is it's a way for them to control what happens in these colleges. And they've been using the accreditor system against, here's Bob Jones University, and they practice racial discrimination, so let's pull their accreditation. They've been using it as a lever of strong-arming private institutions. So what the Trump administration is doing is they're using the same weapon in the same way, but this time against the Ivy League. Now, we're all familiar with Harvard, but this is Columbia. Basically, what's happened is, I'm now going to quote, the Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has determined that Columbia has acted with deliberate indifference toward the harassment of Jewish students, violating Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This is sort of like hate crimes, right? And the Trump administration is saying, we're going to now notify the Middle States Accreditation Agency, which will give Columbia a chance to either be in conformity with the law or have its accreditation pulled. So, I mean, I have to confess, I'm not only surprised, but kind of impressed at the bare-knuckled approach that Trump is using against these Ivy League schools.
Yeah.
I mean, they have openly mobilized against him. They're like, let's put a brain trust together to, help make the legal case against him. Let's try to put this guy in jail. I think J.D. Vance noted that only in the Ivy League, you have voting habits on the part of the faculty and the administration that are like, they show the kind of numbers you get out of North Korea, where like 97% of people, are all on one side and virtually no one is on the other side. Yeah. So these places have become, and you were saying, I think when we were talking about this earlier, that it's hard to deny that they are hotbeds of terrorist
100%,
sentiment.
100%. Not only are they, this is really, I think, where these terrorists kind of congregate and where they get their juice. They kind of get their power from these rallies. And I would be willing to bet the majority of jihadists that we have in this country are at those rallies.
Oh, interesting. I read something pretty fascinating. This was a post that came out of the Middle East, of all places. And it said that in Gaza and even on the West Bank, you have a lot of people who they don't like Hamas. And the reason they don't like Hamas is because it's not even that they are not on board with Hamas regarding Israel. Here's what happens. The aid trucks show up and Hamas swoops in and grabs all the aid, puts it into their own private storehouses, and then hands it out on its own. So Hamas is intercepting the aid, right?
So they're not members of that club.
They're not members of the inside club, apparently, right? They're right. Now, but this post goes on to say, so that is the experience of people who actually deal with Hamas. However, the post goes on to say, you've got all these, Arabs and Palestinians, and they are in Michigan or they are at Columbia. Their experience is wholly different. They don't deal with Hamas. They're not standing in line for aid. They go eat at the dining hall. You know what I mean? These are coddled, often quite wealthy leftists. Yeah. And so they become like Hamas, we're on Hamas's side. Yeah. Because they've got the Greta Thunberg view.
Well, they buy the propaganda because
they create the propaganda.
Well, Hamas,
some of them.
Hamas, they're geniuses at propaganda. I mean, I've watched all of these propaganda videos that they have. Not only do they make propaganda videos using the hostages, the Israeli hostages, they make those, but they also make videos that if they release a hostage, they make a whole video and they edit it and they do music and it's like a movie of them coming out of captivity. And it's used for propaganda and propaganda only to say, look how we're treating these people. We're not the evil monsters that you guys say we are. We are really nice. Look what we're doing. We even have a puppy here, and we're giving it to the little girl that was kidnapped at gunpoint. Oh yeah, with her little puppy. And look, she's coming out with her puppy. We didn't kill her puppy, although they do like to kill puppies. Just FYI.
You showed me. I think you showed me a couple of videos where. And this is, I suppose, what do they call it? Stockholm syndrome or Munchausen, where the release captors are like waving at
they are hugging,
right?
Waving, like as in like, oh, we shall see you again.
We're gonna miss this experience.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, this was a fun summer camp. We'll see you soon. Kind of like that.
Wow.
But also when they do the propaganda videos when they're in captivity, they're forced to say those things, like, against Bibi Netanyahu and the Israeli government, all of that. They're made to say that. And so it's under coercion. And of course, when they come out, they tell the truth.
Right.
You know,
once they're in the safety and probably once they have had a chance to sort of decompress, and recognize, okay, I'm now like permanently out of that environment.
Right. Yeah. But so to your point, no, I think that these people, these protesters that are very much pro Hamas, because let's face it, they're pro Hamas.
Let's bring the terrorism issue home to this guy, Mohammed Soleiman. This is the guy who firebombed the Jews. And remember, this is coming in the wake of the shooting of those two kids. I mean, one of them evidently a Messianic Jew, which is to say a Christian, and the girl was Jewish, and they were about to be engaged. And then so shortly after that, you have this incident in Boulder, Colorado. And now, interestingly, a Biden judge says that you can't, at least temporarily, he's put a TRO, a temporary restraining order. You cannot deport this guy's family. And he very loftily goes, well, there's a long tradition in the West. We don't hold family members responsible.
Isn't he illegal?
He's illegal and his family's illegal.
Then why can't they deport them? I thought you deport illegals.
Yeah, so this is basically what the left is doing. Having brought these people here, it's almost like they've activated their judicial brigade, and what their point is, they can't say you have to keep illegals here. So here's what they do say. The illegals have to get due process.
They kind of do say that.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that's not their stated.
Of course.
What they're getting at is, this is their game. Their game is, why don't we try to make it so the Trump administration has to have trials for everybody? Because everybody knows you can't try 8 million people, right? So you cannot have any kind of mass deportation operation based upon everybody gets a day in court. You can bring your lawyer. So it's a game of stalling, very similar, by the way, to what's happening in the governmental bureaucracy, where people, a lot of times, sometimes, of course, they quit, but other times they just kind of, it's like you just kind of stand stiff, and while someone's trying to remove you, you don't cooperate in any way. You try to just slow things down. I think that's what's going on. But I mean, isn't it unconscionable that right in the aftermath of this horrific attack by this guy, and the knowledge, they're not disputing that they're all illegal. They are illegal. It's just they're disputing that the Trump administration can't just say, all right, well, we don't want these kinds of people here. All of you need to go home.
Yeah. This hill that the Democrats are dying on is quite, it's so bold. They're not hiding it. They're not hiding it. They like criminals. Right? They're fighting for the criminals. I mean, look at the judge that just said, that all these Venezuelan guys that are in the prison in El Salvador have to come back to get due process, and because some of them weren't actually criminals. Well, they're criminals. If they came here illegally, they are criminals. I mean,
yeah, and also, they haven't even given up on Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I still hear Senator Chris Van Hollen. I still hear Democratic Congress. What happened to Kilmar Garcia? Why isn't he? So I have not seen a political party ever fight so hard for people who are not even from the country.
For criminals.
Yeah, and criminal aliens.
And terrorists.
In this case,
who would have thought, let's rewind 25 years, 24 years to 9/11. Who would have thought that the Democrats would actually be protecting the very people that came to harm us? And that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And I do believe that we are going to have an attack like 9/11 or October 7th, something along those lines, soon.
Isn't it, in some ways, who can be surprised, right? Now, Trump has just recently imposed these, no entry requirements for a bunch of countries. But I would have to say that in general, how do we vet people from other countries? right? Take me, for example. I grew up on, you've seen where I grew up, and I grew up in a rather peripheral town on the outskirts of Bombay. I show up for my immigration interview. Now, obviously, I'm a peaceful guy and no threat to the country, and I've long been a U.S. citizen now and all. But here's what I'm saying. What is the ability of any U.S. administration to know how I grew up, where I went to school, who my friends were,
Your
what my
allegiance.
family is like, what imam I was, studying under?
But you're not a Muslim.
No, I'm not.
Oh.
But I'm just making a generic point.
Well, it would follow that you're not a Muslim.
No.
Therefore,
But
okay.
my general point is just that that we have no capacity for 100 countries around the world to have any inside
Proper
access.
vetting.
Yeah, not to do
Proper
any kind
vetting.
of proper vetting at all.
Yeah. Well, as you know, I often talk about this, but when I was in college, I met some foreign students that did not like America. And why they were here, big mystery to me.
Well, in fact, didn't one of them even snort out something to the effect that we're here because you people are so stupid?
Yeah, you're stupid and you let us. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And this was 1986. So, and this was a guy that was told me he was related to the Beirut bomber. So and that seemed to be like something like you would have thought that it was like a christening or something. It was like that was the first time I'd ever heard a Muslim tout jihad like that. And this was this was in the 80s. So before 9/11,
Yeah, no, the Beirut bombing I remember quite well in the sense that it was in the very early years of Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
It was a massive attack, and yet I think in some ways I and many others didn't grasp the significance of it because we were viewing things through the lens of the Cold War.
Right.
So this appeared to be almost like
an
anomaly.
A distraction,
like,
actually.
What's that all about?
Right.
Well, what's eating those
right,
guys?
Right, right,
That
exactly.
kind of thing.
Oh yeah, they're just fundamentalists. They're just crazy.
Right.
But not like as in they're going to be a threat to us, like in the future.
Who knew that was cooking into something? Well, of course, we should have known because Khomeini came to power in Iran in 79. Mm-hmm. Now, admittedly, the Khomeini revolution was only 3 years old, and many people thought at that time that it might collapse and that Iran might go back to something resembling what it was like under the Shah, but that never happened.
No. I actually thought Iran was a problem even then. I often talked about, I hope they never get nukes because we're done for if they do. And this is back in the 80s.
Looking to do something to better your health? Well, look no further than Kimchi One from Brightcore Nutrition. Now, Kimchi One packs all the fermented nutrition of kimchi in convenient capsules, arming your gut with over 900 unique strains of probiotics, supporting gut flora and digestion. I highly recommend this product because all health starts in the gut. So putting the right fermented superfood in your gut improves every aspect of your health, your skin, your hair, your mental performance. Kimchi has even been shown to reduce your risk of obesity and promote smaller waistlines. Who can be against that? Kimchi One is all natural, made in the USA, non-GMO. And today you can get an exclusive offer just for my viewers and listeners, 25% off with code Dinesh by going to mybrightcore.com/Dinesh. Or, even better, there's a special incentive if you call. 50% off your order and free shipping. So, give him a call. Here's the number. Write it down, 888-927-5980. Their educated staff will talk you through it. Make sure that Kimchi One is right for you. Again, the number, 888-927-5980. As you know, our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life, and he didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He also created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is important for my busy schedule. Mike is offering the best deal on his Giza Dream bed sheets, any size, any color, just $49.98. That's right, you can get kings, you can get Cal Kings, queens, split kings, any size, any color. Like I said, $49.98. Order now because when they're gone, they're gone. Also, for a limited time, when your order is over $100, you get $100 in free digital gifts. Call 800-876 800-876-0227. The number again, 800-876-0227, or go to mypillow.com. Use the promo code. It's DINESH. And when you do, you get the amazing offer, $49.98 on the Giza Dream Sheets, any size, any color. Let's talk about the showdown between Elon Musk and Trump over this big, beautiful bill. Now, here's something that's really kind of odd, and that is, you remember that as the bill was being discussed in the House, you had these sort of hardcore Republican budget cutters, right? Guys, Chip Roy was in that group, Thomas Massey was in that group, there were many others. A lot of them coming out of the House Freedom Caucus, and their view was, we're not signing on this bill unless there are further budget cuts, right? Essentially, what happened is that the Trump administration was able to prevail on those guys and say, look, let's get it through. They did make some compromises, but not many. So the bill as is was very acceptable to Trump. I think that's ultimately why everybody kind of folded and signed, at least enough to get it across. Now, the reason I mention all this is that at that point, Elon Musk didn't say anything. Elon Musk was pretty quiet. Now that the bill has been approved in the House, and it's now gone to the Senate, and the Senate needs to sign off on it, and there's some holdouts, but I think there's going to be enough to pass it in the Senate. Elon Musk is like, kill the bill. This will bankrupt the country. I'm only saying this because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of Elon Musk. And I think on the substance, his basic point, which is we cannot take in $3.6 trillion and spend $6 trillion. That has got to stop. Who could disagree? I mean, I agree 100% with that. But the political timing of Musk, to me, is a little awkward. He could have had more impact on the bill early on, but he waited and let the bill like go across the finish line, at least in the House. And now he's like, let's go back to the drawing board. And I can kind of see why not only Trump, but also like Mike Johnson, probably also Thune, are like, wait, what's up with you now, where you're suddenly throwing this major like tantrum over the bill? So my question is not about the merits, on which I agree with Elon Musk, but about the timing of this critique. What do you make about it? Have you any thoughts about this?
Yeah. I mean, he marches to his own
yeah, I mean, he is, I mean, I gotta say, and this is a good thing, he's politically fearless. It doesn't matter that he's been seen like every day with Trump. He's been going to all these meetings. If he thinks this is bad for the country, I've got to say, I think he is truly America first in that sense. He cares about the country.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want the country to go down the tubes.
Right. But I don't think, how I always talk about, in Venezuela, people don't like Maria Corina because they don't think she's far right enough. I'm like, guys, you can't go from far left communist to far right. You just can't.
In one stroke.
In one stroke. You have to kind of go in increments. You have to meet in the middle. And then from there, fight it out after you get there. I kind of think the same here in this case. I don't think we're going to solve our debt problem at all. And I don't think we would solve it even if we were able to slash, $2 trillion. I don't think we would. How many trillions of dollars are we in debt?
Well, we're up
like
38.
30 something. Yeah. So
moving close to 40.
So I think it's kind of like that ship has already sailed. I think we are going to be in debt no matter what. But the problem is this bill, if not signed, the tax cut will like expire, right? And
the tax cuts, I mean, it's much more than that. I mean, the bill is really good on border security. It hires 10,000 new border patrol agents.
Besides that, I'm sure that's great. However, do you want your taxes to go up 68%? I think that's what Trump said that would happen.
Yeah, the truth of it is there was a very good Trump tax cut in 2017, but it was it has an expiration
Right,
date.
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So the
And-
idea that we should be giving more of our tax money to the government is outrageous, because those guys, if they even knew that there's another dollar like on its way, they would start spending it immediately.
You know,
So-
that reminds me of that Instagram thing that with Dave Ramsey, when that guy called in, and he was Korean, right? He calls in and he goes, "Hey, do you think it's bad that like my wife doesn't know that we're millionaires?" Remember that?
You mean that he wasn't fessing up about how much money he had?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And then Dave Ramsey's like, "What? Your wife doesn't know that you're a millionaire?" And well, actually, no, because she's a really big spender. And I'm afraid if she finds out how much money we have in the bank, she's going to go nuts and she's going to spend more. He goes, "I think you have bigger problems." You know, he's
Yeah,
like,
although this you know, I was kind of, you were listening to it and I was kind of overhearing it. I had some sympathy for the guy. I have to say, well, no, I don't agree with him.
No.
I do think that marriage is based upon full disclosure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but here's what I mean.
Is there something I
think-
need? Is there something I'm supposed to know?
No. The guy was, I think the guy was in a bit of a bind, because I think what he was saying, and look, it's his own fault, because what he should have done is upfront. You know, first of all, I don't know how long he's been married or any of that, right?
5 years. 5 years.
Oh, 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got the idea that what happened is he got married first. Then he discovers that his wife is like a big spender. Then he decides, well, look, I'm going to have to sort of deal with this, but I better not let on, because if she thought we have all this money, she's going to ramp up the spending.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is this train has been off the rails the whole time.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I think Dave Ramsey was horrified. You know how he likes to save money, right?
Oh, yeah.
He obviously doesn't want the wife to go nuts, but he's like, "Listen, you're like not being honest about your financial with your wife, and that's a very bad problem."
This really shows you, we'll obviously come back to our topic about the big, beautiful bill, but what I think
Well,
it
it
shows,
reminded me of that because
Yeah.
of the people.
Well, I think it shows you, though, something very good about Dave Ramsey, which is that ultimately he's a finance guy, but his financial advice is embedded inside of a moral framework, right?
Moral framework.
So, for example, what he would say here is saving money is good, but having a proper family structure,
honest
is
relationship.
better. That's more important. And so even if your finances become more jeopardized because you have to sort of fess up, it's better to do that and then work out an acceptable arrangement rather than to continue in this kind of program of deceit.
Right.
Now, if you had to vote up or down on this big beautiful bill, given the Musk critique, given the bill has good things, but it obviously also it doesn't do enough on the spending side, my view is go for it.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we should go for it. I think we should give people a relief in taxes. I think that the economy will grow from it. Once we go through the midterms and we win, like, a red wave, hopefully, then we can go in and actually study it a little more and maybe make a few more cuts. But we can't do that right now. We don't have the House, really.
I mean, in fairness, Congress is taking up some Doge cuts. Now they're pretty modest, right?
Yeah.
The first round is basically $10 billion,
Yeah.
which, by the way, is a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money in the big scheme of things.
Yeah, because it's
and-
B and not T.
Correct. Well put. But I think that, hey, look, taking $1 billion away from NPR and PBS, how great is that?
No, that's wonderful.
Right?
Wonderful.
Slashing a bunch of useless USAID and foreign aid programs.
Wonderful.
Awesome. So, like, a lot of these priorities will get sidelined if the bill crashes into the rocks. And by the way, these are a lot of things that Trump campaigned on, right? The Keystone Pipeline, unleashing energy,
Yes.
making the tax cuts permanent, securing the border,
Yes.
getting rid of all those excess IRS agents. I mean, all of this is in there.
Yeah.
So a lot of the priorities of our side are in this bill. And so
Yeah.
I say that having looked at it more closely, on the balance, it's a very good.
I like it. I mean, I do like it. The
You
majority-
drew to my attention this issue about a judge something about hormone therapy
Federal
for transgenders.
federal,
What the heck is this all about?
yeah, so federal prisons must keep providing hormone therapy to transgender inmates. Yeah, they must continue providing this. I had no idea that they were doing it. I think it's disgusting. It prohibits prison officials from arbitrarily depriving inmates of medications and other lifestyle accommodations. This is just crazy. And the reason, I mean, obviously this is just crazy on the face of it, but also made me mad because, as you know, I think I haven't made it a secret here that I am postmenopausal and I've been on hormone replacement therapy for 4 years already. And it is super expensive. And I don't know really how other women that cannot afford to do this can live. Because let me tell you, when you, and there are a lot of us, because obviously all of the teenagers of the 80s are now postmenopausal, right? They're going through menopause, some of them now, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Anyway, all that to say is that these hormone replacement therapies are extremely expensive and we have to pay out of pocket. So it makes me really mad that the taxpayer is paying for fake women to get hormone replacement therapy and not real women.
I mean,
to get
this
it.
is nuts.
You know
right?
what I mean?
And it's dramatized by what you just said, right? I mean, it's bad enough on the face of it. It is prima facie crazy because we're not talking about people getting, shots for their asthma or any. You're talking about the equivalent of plastic surgery. For prison inmates.
For prison inmates, yes. For real women like me, no. Because as you know, the women that, as you age, you start losing estrogen, you lose testosterone, you lose all kinds of hormones. And the replacement, it doesn't get you back to the way you were at 25 or 30, but it at least keeps you balanced because estrogen plays so many roles. Like, I suffer from like frozen shoulder, my hips, those things are very much compromised when your estrogen levels go down.
Right.
And so I'm getting replacement so that I can at least live a normal or semi-normal life without gaining a bunch of weight, which that's what happened. You gain another extra 20, 30 pounds on top of, because estrogen plays a role in that too. And so yes, real women cannot get hormone replacement therapy.
So what you're saying is that the government doesn't pay or doesn't ensure that.
No.
Why on earth are they doing this?
Exactly right. That's my question. Is that for real women, this is not even, they don't even consider it. But for fake women, oh yeah, let's give them their hormones. Let's give them their shots. Let's do this. Let's do that. What is going on?
What is going on? Well, let's turn to what is going on with Letitia James, because I've got some funny stuff to tell you.
Okay.
We haven't actually talked about this.
I know.
But Letitia James, as you know, is in hot water because she has evidently been lying on mortgage applications and claiming that she lives in Virginia, which is obviously not true. She lives in Brooklyn. And so to get these benefits, it has to be your primary residence. So she claimed her primary residence is in Norfolk, Virginia. So now she's busted, right? And there's in fact a DOJ investigation going on, and she could very well be charged. It would be just great if she is.
Oh my gosh.
Right? I mean, the very person who was using, and by the way, think about it. She was using real estate and financial disclosure to get Trump.
She's what I call a dumb criminal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. It's like I'm going to accuse the bank manager of robbing the bank that I was caught running out of with a box full of gold from the safe deposit box. All right, but so she gave a speech. And this speech is a classic unto itself because in the speech, what she basically said is she kind of had to admit, right, that she had not been accurate on these applications. So she acted like, quote, I'm not quoting her, my niece has children, and because I'm a good aunt, I wanted her to have a home. So she's acting like
Oh.
benevolence caused me to do this. Yes, it was an administrative deceit,
Yeah.
but with
Yeah, yeah.
I was well
So-
motivated.
So
But
basically,
anyway,
the equivalent of I robbed the bank because my family's starving.
pretty much. But,
Yeah,
but
all right.
our friend Joel Gilbert, who's a very good, he's a filmmaker, by the way, but he's also an investigative writer. He basically says, all right, let me go check into this
Love
niece
it.
and her children, right? So here we go. So the apparently the niece is a woman named Shamise Thompson, right? She's 53 years old. She's the niece, 53-year-old niece. Let's not even go into that, right? But no surprise.
It can happen.
Yeah, it can happen. No surprise. Her children are adults, right? They're obviously, the 53-year-old woman doesn't have 2-year-olds, right? So they're adults, and not only they're adults, they both have long criminal histories, right? So let's go into it.
Oh.
Her adult daughter, named Kayla Hairston, was 20 years old when apparently Letitia James signed supposedly to benefit her. But Kayla has multiple arrests on her record, a felony charge for violating a Virginia law prohibiting firearm possession by convicted felons, which means she's already a felon on another count, and now she, as a felon, is possessing a firearm. And she's also been charged with making false statements on criminal history consent forms. And she was arrested for, this is Kayla Hairston, arrested in June 2024 for grand larceny. Then we turn to the other daughter, whose name is Shamise, and she's 36. No, I'm sorry. Shamise's 36-year-old daughter, Nakia Monique Thompson. Let me read you this. Her crimes span 20 years in the states of Virginia and North Carolina, include multiple prison sentences and convictions for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, abuse of a child, possession of burglary tools, third-degree larceny, grand larceny, assault and battery, trespassing, shoplifting, resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, possession of marijuana, driving with a suspended license, and conspiracy to commit larceny.
Oh, that's nothing.
Right? I mean,
oh, that's petty.
So
that's
this
a petty
is-
crime. Come on, honey.
well, I mean, one of the
Just
things
kidding.
that we often don't realize is that some of these public figures, you know, they put on a kind of a straight face and all that, but we don't realize that they
come
their
from a criminal
family-
cartel.
Right? You've got like an entire nest of criminals
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
of course, Letitia with a straight face. Well, you know, I'm just trying to provide my niece, blah, blah, blah. And it takes a little bit of investigative digging,
No, good for Joel.
right? Good work.
Oh, yeah.
Good work.
work.
This is
Oh,
we
good
need a
work.
lot more of this kind of
Good
thing. All right.
work.
Guys, I'd like to invite you to check out my Locals channel. Consider becoming an annual subscriber. I post a lot of exclusive content there, including content you won't find anywhere else. On Locals, you get Dinesh Unchained, Dinesh Uncensored, and you can also interact with me directly. I do a live weekly Q&A every Tuesday. No topic is off limits. I've got a movie page up on Locals with a whole bunch of films. Just click and watch. 2,000 Mules is up there, Police State, Vindicating Trump. And we just added also our feature film starring Jim Caviezel. It's called Infidel. If you're an annual subscriber, you can stream and watch this movie content for free. It's included with your subscription. So check out the channel. It's dinesh.locals.com. I'd love to have you along for this great ride. Again, it's dinesh.locals.com. I want to talk about rent control. So rent control in New York is the platform of this guy Madani. This is the Muslim guy, and he's running for mayor of New York against Eric Adams.
Mhm.
They're sort of neck and neck. Eric Adams is ahead, but not by much. And this guy is an Islamist and
I
a
mean,
leftist.
think of the optics, okay?
Right.
9/11, New York City, 2001. And then 25 years later, the mayor of that very city is Islamic.
Right.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's like
Now this guy,
crazy,
I will
crazy.
give him credit. To look at him, he does not look like Bin Laden, right? He looks like a
No.
high-tech guy.
Bin Laden looked a little weird. That's why Bin Laden looked.
No,
like.
but I'm saying there is a certain look,
He
right?
looked. Didn't he sleep in a cave?
No, right. But
Okay.
I mean, all those guys, Al Zawahiri, you know, some of them were from Egypt, some of them Pakistan, but they all had the same look. And by the way, it's the same look as the mullahs in Iran and some of the Hamas guys. Same thing. You know, they've got these flowing beards, fiery eyes. This guy looks like he comes out of Microsoft or Oracle. He's a suave guy. He makes these hip social media commercials. So I can see why there's something tempting about him. Now, of course, you know, rent control has been tried. It's been tried in New York, disaster. It's been tried in, Milei just got rid of it in Argentina. It was a disaster there. It's been tried in Bombay. In fact, it is in effect in Bombay. And what you have in Mumbai, is that you have large numbers of buildings with most of their apartments empty. Why? Because the landlord knows if I rent this apartment, the person, first of all, who moves in will never move out. Number two, there are people living in apartments whose rent is frozen for like 25 years. So since you can't raise the rent, they don't upgrade the building. The building kind of goes, down the tubes. Things aren't working. There are leaks everywhere. Then the tenants complain, you got to fix the building. Well, I can't fix the building because I'm not even getting enough revenue from the building to make the upkeep of it. So this is the cycle of decay.
Yes, yeah.
And this is what the left produces,
Yeah.
right? Their strategy is always price controls.
They do.
Rent control.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they hope that because New York, as I say, tried it. So they're almost hoping like that generation has forgotten about it.
Yeah.
And what you have now is a new generation of people who are like, young people. Wouldn't it be nice if my rent was fixed and they could never raise it? Then, if someone turns around and says, well, how about if we fix your salary and never raise it? Then they're outraged. They're like, oh no, you can't do that. But what's the difference? If you're going to protect the renter and say your rent can never go up, why don't you protect the employer and say you never have to pay this guy anything more? Same thing, same principle,
no,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
It's a very socialist/communist idea.
Communist idea. Let's turn to the one of your favorite topics, which is China.
Oh my gosh!
And you were telling me about just when and by the way, this is one of the features of the big beautiful bill, is it essentially strips all the rules of COVID, meaning all the, because a bunch of rules were put into place in the federal government, in all the different sectors. And in one stroke, the big beautiful bill wipes them out and essentially says, we're going back to the rules that were in place beforehand. So no residual COVID sort of nonsense is allowed to persist. Mm-hmm. But as that is happening, you were telling me,
just in time for another wave.
Yeah, what's that all about?
So apparently, there's a wave of COVID, of some variant of COVID that has hit Hong Kong, Singapore, China, Thailand, and it is supposedly pretty bad. They said that there are some, deaths involved here. That it rose really quickly. Apparently people get, again, it's like the Delta where it hits your lungs kind of place.
From what you were saying a couple of days ago, it differs from the old COVID in the sense that it is not so much of a cold as it is a burning throat.
That too. That's
right?
one. That is one of the symptoms, but it is a pretty bad one. And they were saying, that obviously they're urging people to get booster vaccinations so that they can, not get it. But as you know, the vaccinations do not do anything. They don't make you not get it. They don't make you not spread it. And so I'm not really sure what this widespread booster vaccination bid is for these outbreaks.
Because the people are so, on edge about how COVID was handled.
Right. And so that's, my point is this COVID virus, which people I don't think talk enough about, because a lot of people are like, oh, it's BS. You should see all the comments, on these articles.
Just
oh, it's BS. Oh, it's because Trump is back president, that it's back, No, COVID is a real virus, but it's an invented virus. The Chinese did this. And it's the Chinese that should pay dearly for this. And, you know, we kind of joked about it yesterday because we're like, the Chinese are trying to kill everybody, but inadvertently, they're also doing it to themselves, you know?
Yeah, because there have been outbreaks in Wuhan. There have been
Yeah.
outbreaks in other parts of
Yeah.
China.
So the way that this virus, you know, it was formulated, I mean, it just does all kinds of weird things. I mean, think of how many viruses have morphed into variants the way this one does.
Well, not only that, but I think that if you trace that discussion between Fauci and those leading virologists, people like Christian Anderson at in California, I think at Scripps or UCSD, the virologists were among themselves, and all this stuff has now come out. They were saying, "Hey, look at this virus. It's not like a normal virus. Its chemistry seems to be different. It operates differently." And of course, we know that a vaccine that works against other types of ailments certainly doesn't work, as far as we know, against COVID, at least not in the same way. So they were very curious. They didn't go so far as to say we know for sure, but they were leaning that way. And it's then like Fauci lassoed them all and roped them all into, hey, listen, guys, you need to all sing out of the same hymn book.
I mean, I think, you know, Fauci obviously I think is more involved than we all know. But it's just, you know, I feel like why wasn't China one of the countries that Trump said no, you know, no way, Jose? Ban. Yeah. Why didn't he do a travel ban for China? I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but
well, I think the point you're making, and we've talked about this, is that a lot of focus has been on the ineffectiveness of the vaccine, right?
Yeah.
But it's one thing to say that you tried to combat the virus, you came up with a vaccine, it didn't prevent you getting it or even transmitting it. Maybe it helped lessen the severity of it. You could call that a limited or defective vaccine. Now, I agree. You shouldn't be mandating that. It's not even a real vaccine in the sense that we understand vaccine. But what you're saying is, the bigger culpability is, how did we get COVID?
Right.
Right? And where's the accountability for that?
I haven't seen any. Like, literally charging the Communist Party of China with crimes against humanity.
Right.
Along with all the people that were players in the gain of function research.
Right.
Crimes against humanity. Millions of people died.
And the reason this is doubly important, I think, is not only because accountability is always good, but I'd go further. There are now tens, if not hundreds, of these biolabs, and a lot of them are in very dubious parts of the world: Ukraine, Kazakhstan, and they obviously are not going to be at the highest standards of biosafety, and they are involved
maybe on purpose.
I think it is on purpose. I think that these labs were set up with the collaboration of intelligence agencies in the West. They couldn't have been set up any other way. I mean, how do you get all these labs in Ukraine if the U.S. government wasn't involved in helping to set them up, bankroll? It's not the Ukraine, we're going to do gain-of-function research on it. No. So I think that there is a bigger nefarious operation that needs to be investigated and exposed.
We should get to the bottom of that for sure. The other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, speaking of the Chinese nationals charged with conspiracy and smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the U.S. for their work at a University of Michigan laboratory. Again, another laboratory.
So they brought in specimens?
Criminal, smuggling goods into the United States, false statements, visa fraud. So they...
But what's going on here? In other words, isn't it odd that, China has, by the way, they have a lot of labs, they have a lot of universities. Their universities are particularly good in the technical sphere. In fact, if you look at the top 10 technical universities in the world, not liberal arts, but technical universities, China has like 7 of them. MIT is in there, Caltech is in there, but a lot of them are Chinese. So it's very odd to me that they would be trying to smuggle, unless the smuggling had a different purpose.
Yeah, it says, so United States Attorney Gorgon stated the alleged actions of these Chinese nationals, including a loyal member of the Chinese Communist Party, are of the gravest national security concerns. These two aliens have been charged with smuggling a fungus that has been described as a potential agro-terrorism weapon into the heartland of America, where they apparently intended to use a University of Michigan laboratory to further their science. I mean, again, to your point, they're like trying to kill everybody, but they're also hurting themselves. What, I don't know.
It's a case where it sounds like, I mean, let's just look at it on the face of it. They're bringing in these pathogens. They're taking them to Michigan. Is the University of Michigan asked them to do this? Yeah.
So it says that they work with the University of Michigan. They co-authored research into the fungus. So apparently it looks to me like the university was also like, let them, but maybe the university lab didn't know exactly what strain was brought in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the bigger picture here is just this, and that is that we don't trust the Chinese. We also recognize that a lot of the Chinese in this country are part of a governmental network that goes right back to the Chinese Communist Party, correct? In other words, I've read that Chinese, when they go back to China, they basically get like an intelligence debriefing.
See, look, that's what it looks like. The fungus when it attacks the crop like that.
Right.
So apparently there's already something happening with that, but they wanted to make it even worse. They were like, they were set on just basically distributing it in North America. More than it already is, so that it would basically wreak havoc even further.
All of this is occurring against a backdrop in which, look, I mean, there's a lot of trade hostility right now between America and China. Trump just posted basically saying, it's really hard to get Xi to make a deal. Which is to say that the Chinese are, partly because they hold some strong cards in their hands and partly because they don't want to be seen like they're bowing or buckling to Trump. They're taking the view that, we are equal partners with you. And so they're taking a tough stance on the trade issue, as I think we should expect that they would have. But I also think that all of these incidents, like the one we've been talking about here, the Chinese government is involved in all this. These things don't happen. Chinese guys don't just say, we're going to take specimens to the University of Michigan, right?
It's directed.
Somebody is directing them. Somebody is authorizing them. At the very least, the CCP is aware and monitoring what is happening and has its own agenda.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I do think that we've got to hold them accountable for not just COVID, but a lot of other things that they've done.
The reason I think it's hard, honey, is simply because I think the Chinese have been very crafty. They have basically embedded themselves inside the World Health Organization. They control, to a degree, some of these international agencies. The Europeans are very reluctant to hold them responsible. And so the Chinese have,
everybody's scared of them. Is that the answer?
Not just scared of them. They've also transactionally bought off everybody. And by that I mean, the Nigerians won't vote against them because they're building a stadium in Nigeria, and the people from the Congo won't vote against them because they're building 7 bridges in the Congo. In other words, the Chinese, what they've done is through their Belt and Road Initiative, they've basically got, think of it, you'd be reluctant to condemn somebody if they were in some way your business partner, right? If you were collaborating on some big project, at the very least you'd think twice. That's really what's going on. The whole world is thinking twice.
Yeah.
Because even though we know that these guys are bad guys, It's like somehow we've all
They are. I think
gotten into bed with them.
I think they're the worst of the worst. I mean, I do. The Chinese. I'm sorry. I think really they're the greatest geopolitical threat we face. Because, I mean, look, if COVID didn't wake people up to these people, I don't know what will.
I also think that in terms of the overall picture of things, for so many years, we thought of the Soviets as our greatest adversary. But the Chinese are bigger, they're richer because they have worked out a form of capitalism that has worked for them, a kind of state-run capitalism. And in some ways, they're more patient, they're more cunning, they're smarter. And so the threat is ultimately a more long-term threat, but it's no less real.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and SalemNow.com.